Hello and welcome to this part 2 speaking video on the topic of describe a time you arrived early for an appointment. You should say what it was, where it was, what you did while waiting, and explain how you felt about it. It's quite a tricky topic. There's not a lot of vocabulary that springs to mind when getting this topic, but hopefully I'll give you an idea of a context that you can use for this answer. I'm pleased you've asked me this question because this is actually something that happened to me quite recently, so I remember it clearly. I had a dentist appointment, just a checkup, and for some reason I thought it was at 10 a.m. I left home at 9 a.m. to give myself plenty of time to get there in the rush hour traffic and find a place to park. Unexpectedly, there were no hold-ups, and I found a parking space close to the dentist, and I was feeling very pleased with myself that I'd arrived early for my appointment. I went to the reception desk, gave my name, and the receptionist looked a bit confused, looked at her watch and said, "You're a bit early. Your appointment isn't until 11 a.m. My heart sank. I had so much work to do, and now I was going to lose an hour in the waiting room at the dentist's. I am a person who likes to be on time, and I pride myself on my timekeeping, but being an hour and 20 minutes early is ridiculous. I had a dilemma: go to work, do 10 minutes work, and then come back again, or sit and wait. I decided on the latter because I couldn't face my colleagues laughing at my stupidity. In the waiting room there was coffee and a good Wi-Fi connection, so I made myself a coffee and logged into my work email account. There were quite a few emails that I could deal with, and surprisingly, I managed to get a lot more done than I would have done if I had been at work. Luckily, the dentist was not running late, and I actually got in to see her 10 minutes early. When I first realised my error, I felt stupid and annoyed with myself for getting the time of the appointment wrong. But with hindsight, I caught up on a lot of work emails, and when I got to work at around lunchtime, I felt more relaxed than normal, as I had dealt with all the urgent matters. Now when I have any appointment, I double check the time, because although it turned out okay in the end, I don't really want to make the same mistake again. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the language. You might notice I use this a lot. I'm pleased you've asked me this question because you're only going to do one part 2 answer, and so I keep repeating a lot of things to hopefully help you to remember them for your part 2. And because it's got present perfect, you've asked me, it's a good way to impress the IELTS examiner. Quite recently, you can say it happened recently, or it happened to me quite recently. I remember it clearly is another way of saying I remember it well. A checkup is when you go to the dentist and they just look at your teeth to check that they are all okay. You're not actually having any treatment done at that appointment. Plenty of time, lots of time. Rush hour traffic, this is the time in the UK, it seems to be all day, when the traffic is at its busiest. It might be between 8 and 9, 9 and 10. Unexpectedly, so I had expected that there was going to be a problem, but unexpectedly, another way of saying surprisingly, but I've said surprisingly later, so I'm trying to expand my range of vocabulary. Hold-ups. Hold-ups can be anything that holds you up, that makes you late, like a traffic jam is a hold-up. I was feeling very pleased with myself, some past continuous here, so at this moment I'm feeling pleased with myself. When you're pleased with yourself, you're happy with what you have done. Because I had arrived early, so past perfect. When you go to any place where you have an appointment, you give your name. So I gave my name. The receptionist looked confused because I was early, so she's like a bit puzzled, a bit confused. Very useful little expression, quite informal, not to be used in IELTS writing, but very good for IELTS speaking whenever you have a feeling of like, oh no. So something bad. It's like your heart sinking in your body. So my heart sank, and it's when your shoulders drop and you're like, oh no, because I realised I was over an hour early. When you lose an hour, it's when something happens and an hour that you plan to do something else is lost. So I was going to lose an hour because I was just sitting in the waiting room. Of course, this topic is about time, so remember we say to be on time. I like to be on time. I pride myself on my timekeeping. If you pride yourself on something, it means you're very pleased with how you do something and it's something you're proud of. So I pride myself on my timekeeping, and it means I'm always on time and I'm very proud of that fact. Being an hour and 20 minutes early is ridiculous, stupid. A dilemma, useful little noun. A dilemma, when you could do one thing or another and you don't know what to do. If you are thinking of going abroad to work or study and you don't know whether to go to America or Canada, this is a dilemma. I decided on the latter, so to sit and wait. The last thing I mentioned, the latter. I couldn't face my colleagues laughing at my stupidity. When you can't face something, it's like, oh no, I don't want to do that because you feel uncomfortable doing it. So I couldn't face my colleagues laughing at my stupidity. When you've done something stupid, the noun is your stupidity. When you go onto your computer, you can either log on or log into. So logged onto my work email account, logged into my work email account, it doesn't really matter. There were a few emails I could deal with, handle, sort out. Here we've got surprisingly. Now this is very complex. Here we've got a third conditional. Imagining a situation that didn't happen in the past. I managed to get a lot more work done than I would have done if I had been at work. So if I had been at work, I wouldn't have done as much work. That's what I'm saying. So it's a third conditional. If you don't know how to use this tense, I recommend that you go and look at how to use it. This isn't a grammar course. I'm not going to go through the grammar for it, but it's a very useful one and really makes you stand out as an 8 candidate if you can use the third conditional. So I managed to get a lot more done than I would have done if I had been at work. Luckily, fortunately, the dentist was not running late, past continuous, another impressive tense. To run late means to not be on time, and often when you go to the doctors or the dentist or a hospital, they are running late. So if your appointment's at 10, you don't go in to see the doctor until 11 because they are running late. With hindsight, very useful for IELTS speaking. And this means with the ability to look back on a situation and think about it. Hindsight, it's like looking behind. So actually, although I was annoyed and feeling stupid, actually with hindsight, I caught up on a lot of work emails, so it wasn't such a bad thing. To catch up on means to kind of get up to date with things, to do work that you are behind in. Urgent matters, so the important things. Like I said at the start, it's quite hard to do this topic. There's not a lot of vocabulary that jumps out other than to be on time, to be running late. But this is a very useful one, to double check the time. So that means you look at the time of your appointment and then you look again. So you check it twice. To double check, I double check the time. Because although it turned out okay in the end, to turn out okay means it was okay in the end. I don't want to make the same mistake again. And this is a collocation. We talk about making the same mistake again. So yes, a tricky topic because there's not a lot of vocabulary that you can use, but hopefully I've given you a situation such as a doctor or a dentist where you can easily talk about it and try to use things like with hindsight, I caught up on, the dentist was running late or was not running late, turned out okay in the end, hold-ups, double check the time, I don't want to make the same mistake again. So there is some quite useful vocabulary in this video. Hope you found it useful. Thanks for watching.